Human resources people, what are some not safe for work / WTF reasons an employee has been disciplined and or terminated for? Back when I was a warehouse manager, I caught 2 employees banging in an isolated high bay storage aisle. I immediately proceeded to not give a crap and went on about my day. Another time, I caught a member of upper management pilfering product in this same area. Again, I proceeded to not give a crap, and later that week, I got promoted. Next story. Not HR, but had a friend in IT security who needed to vent. We worked together for years. Years ago, late 90s, at a large company, there was a team in the basement of the building. I forget their job. Their section was down a long hall of cubicle walls, so they could see if someone was coming to them and they could prepare. That team requisitioned a server for their work. At the time, servers were expensive and other teams went without. The systems team replaced their old Novell mail server with Exchange. They planned for 5 years of space and thought all was good. At the 6-month point, the Exchange server was nearly full. An audit of account sizes found that this team of 5 were using 70% of the space in a company of several thousand. Adult content. Lots of adult content. They were emailing each other pics and movies, storing them on the server they had, and as soon as management knew, they fired the team and locked all their devices in a secure room. My friend's job was to go through all of it, all the workstations, server, and email accounts, creating a spreadsheet of the content. This was per the legal department to make sure there was nothing illegal in there. It took him over a week to get it done, to keep it quiet and tell no one from the company other than the lawyers. Fortunately, there was nothing illegal, just graphic. After, he was given 2 weeks of vacation to decompress and a therapist if he wanted. How did I know? I was a contractor there at the time, and while he was told to tell no other employees, I wasn't an employee. I was a friend from another job, and he needed to tell someone other than his wife. So when he was finishing up, he walked by my desk and said, "Let's go to lunch right now." So I went to lunch and just to listen to him vent. I've always been kind of baffled hearing about people with collections of adult content. What do you mean you have almost a terabyte of it? How is that possible? Why are you saving it? I don't know. It's something I don't understand and maybe don't even care to. I would say you do you, but maybe you do you on your own time, not company time. Next story. I used to work in a UK job center, and we had 2 blokes and a woman all laid off from the same factory on the same day. All were trying to claim unemployment benefit after being dismissed for gross misconduct. It only came to light that these 3 had been caught enjoying a trio in the work toilets when one of the blokes' wives came into the office on signing on day to the best of my memory, lamp that effing slag who lost my Trevor his freaking job. Lamp? Is that a slang term that I just don't know? This post might just be too British for me. Next story. A man came in to complain to the zoning manager that one of our employees had been sleeping with his wife. The zoning manager said he was sorry it was happening, but he didn't know why the man brought it to his attention. The man informed him that the 2 were only doing it while they were at work. Now, the employee worked in animal control, and he requested that he be assigned weekend work. The complainant's wife would get all dolled up like she was going out shopping and then go to animal control and bang the dude in between him putting down animals. The employee was smart enough to be arranging these rendezvous on his work computer, and I was assigned the investigation. I got to review his emails and learned all sorts of things, like that his dong was actually smaller than her husband's, but she still liked it. They also frequently boned on a swivel chair at the office. The employee was fired, but being a public employer, the chair remained with the city. Next story. I had a guy who in his first week of employment was caught pleasuring himself to adult content in the parking lot. Not trying to be subtle or anything. The company I worked for was so lawsuit adverse that they never let us fire anyone. In fact, we once had an employee who we found out was coming into work, clocking in, and then going home. They would come back at the end of their shift to clock out. HR wouldn't let us fire this employee without first giving them a warning. Anyway, I hear about this, check with HR, and as it turns out, self-pleasuring in the parking lot is a terminable offense. So I volunteer to take care of terminating the guy. I bring the guy into an office to tell him that we're letting him go, and he asks me, "Don't I get a warning?" I had to tell him, no, not for this. This was decades ago. Next story. I found a used rubber in my office trash can. A few days later, I found another. HR notified both times, so they called building security after the second. My office was added to patrol route. An employee of mine, married woman, late 20s, was hosting gentlemen from other departments, 3 that she confessed to, in my office after hours because A, her home life was crap, B, my office was on an inside corridor and had no windows, and C, she had a key that she'd been given by the previous occupant of that office for legit work reasons. She She and her stable of men were all let go, and the company paid a professional cleaning crew to deep clean my office. Did not matter. I still got the ick in there. Next story. HR found a bent and burnt spoon with the remainder of H in the trash of the bathroom right after the new hire walked out of it. When confronted about it, he couldn't even put a sentence together. Was fired immediately. Next story. I've been both HR and a union rep. The 4 strangest things I found. 2 NSF and 2 WTF. One I was involved with was an organized effort by several employees to steal chocolate bars from a third-party vendor that used one of our storage rooms. It has since garnered the name the Cadbury Caper. Over 7 employees were terminated, and 2 other investigations were launched because of evidence that came up during that investigation about other separate incidents of theft. One of which was an employee taking clean laundry, using it at home and their cottage. Sheets, towels, washcloths, etc. Then returning the dirty laundry to work and taking more clean ones home again. The second was a registered nurse who was having secret liaisons with a long-term patient. She would take him in his wheelchair on walks and then go into an unused storage room in the basement and get to know each other. The third was an incident where the staff washrooms were being randomly found to have fecal matter strewn on the walls like finger painting. It happened over several weeks until we literally had to watch cameras to see who went in and out of those washrooms all day and have them cleaned after every use to see who was doing it. The fourth was a maintenance person who was caught watching adult content on his work computer and pleasuring himself to it on duty. Just before he was fired, he claimed to have an adult content addiction, which completely shifted the course of the investigation and incident. Next story. Not HR, but I've seen a few WTF firings. One was an executive who was tasked with putting together a PowerPoint with a whole room full of engineers and managers. His boss, the COO, told him to assemble the pages and input all of us would be feeding him over the course of the day, and that he would be back at like 4 p.m. to see what he had done so far. We worked like mad all day and sent our stuff over to him. We were all in a huge conference room with laptops. COO comes back in at the end of the day and says, "Okay, show me what you have." The guy has nothing. He sat there all day and did nothing, thinking the COO would actually wait until tomorrow or something. When the COO exploded and asked him, "What the hell?" the guy said he actually had no idea how to use PowerPoint. Turns out the guy got all the way up to a VP/GM position and his wife did all his PowerPoints for him at home at night. Dude got fired on the spot. Also saw another C-level exec fired for pilfering autographed sports memorabilia from one of our contracted customers. Dude lost a huge 6-figure salary plus his marriage. Ended up living with his mom again, all for some autographed footballs and crap. The security guard making minimum wage busted him by going on a mission and compiling video evidence. He made a greatest hits tape of the guy stealing stuff, waited until a day when there was a big tour, and physically handed it to the CEO of the company and said, "You need to watch this." What do you mean you get up to a VP position and your PowerPoints are all outsourced to your wife? That would give me the most insane imposter syndrome. Like, you think you work that job and deserve it? You can't make a damn PowerPoint, dude. Next story. I was talking to our head of training years ago, and I asked him this. He said once he got a call from the hotel manager where we were holding a training session. The manager had him come into his office. The manager asked, "Are you aware we have a security camera in the stairwells?" He then proceeded to show a video of employees banging. The training head then paused and said, "So, those 3 got fired." Next story. I was a manager of an office. One of the girls came in on the weekend. She walked in on one of the male colleagues in the office banging with another woman, and that woman was not his wife. When she complained to me, she was very descriptive, even told me that the office smelled like it. The guy was fired and his wife filed for divorce. Lesson to be learned. Don't be cheap and bring your mistress to the office to bang. Next story. It was Secret Santa, and he got the lesbian member of staff a molded, fake dong of his own dong. No one got fired. The guy who gave the gift was the owner of the company. The company dynamic was extremely informal, lots of banter, swearing, crude jokes, etc. It was sort of the company way to be like this, and no, it wasn't hell to work in. It was actually quite refreshing in a weird way. I don't work there anymore, but I keep in contact with people who do still work there, and shenanigans like this happen pretty much on a monthly basis. Next story. IT guy. Back in the days before decent web filtering, HR asked me to check logs for a reported incident. A user got to work early and was walking past a row of cubicles, glanced over and saw another early riser checking out some photographs. Was it adult content? Of course it was adult content, but not your old regular, hide the salami brand of adult content. It was full-on bestiality. Next story. Had a guy I was working with who was obviously on something, had been reported to HR several times. Boss tried to do him a solid and let him take a cup home to pee in to be drug tested and bring back. A few days later, overheard the boss telling him that they know he got someone else to pee in the cup. Dude was raging, promising it was his. The boss told him if it was his, he's pregnant. Made him take another one in the work bathroom and he failed. Fired, but he was back a week later. Next story. Not in HR, but I had to do some of the hiring and firing on the farm when I was farming. Well, one guy we hired seasonally to help out at the farm market got caught banging a customer's dog in the walk-in cooler. We had to let him go, with the police. Some people really are just missing a part of the brain that says, hey, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. I can't imagine the rationale behind, yeah, I'll do this at work. Like, I'm already baffled by let's do this in general in terms of this. At work, dude? What's going on? Next story. Not HR myself, but I've worked in a large hospital for a long time. Lots of folks in a hospital apparently get pretty frisky. We had a program where teenagers/new high school graduates interested in pursuing pharmacology as a degree/career could come in and train to be pharmacy techs and be exposed to the work and processes involved in the work. One of our female pharmacists in her 40s took it upon herself to deflower one of the new grads who graduated early and was only 16 during his summer there. Got caught doing doggy in the stairwell. It was a big deal. Also saw a nurse in his mid-20s get fired for stealing Viagra that was being used for treatment of pulmonary hypertension. It was a very interesting process because you can't so much drug test for that one. And dude, you're 26. Why do you need to steal boner pills? Saw a guy doing his residency get toted out of the hospital/medical program when he got caught loudly banging a nurse in a call room. Also saw a nurse get fired for stealing insulin to take home to treat her diabetic ferret. That one, I assume, wasn't sexual. So, aside from the first one, which is just straight illegal, for some reason I imagine these all in a medical drama. Is it because I'm currently watching The Pit? Yeah, probably. And also, first medical drama I've ever watched. It's pretty sick, honestly. It's really dramatic, but that's sort of the thing, so I can't be upset when it does what it says on the tin. Seriously? Great show. Next story. I used to work for a large UK-based company. Part of the initial training period was a week-long stay at HQ in London, which was actually pretty cool because it was all drinks and dinner on the company every night. A young lad from my team was on this training week and got absolutely hammered. They went to get in a cab to move on to the next venue, and the corporate head of HR was climbing into the cab in front of him. She was on the larger side, and this young lad saw a large butt in front of him, and before his brain could engage, he wound up and delivered a full open palm butt slap to the corporate head of HR. And he was gone. Next story. Recruiter here. One guy came in saying it was time for a fresh challenge, not fully utilized in his present role by employees who lacked his ambition and vision, etc., etc. Turned out he'd just been fired after going out, getting drunk, and returning to the office to watch adult content where the cleaners found him in the morning at his desk with his dong in his hand after falling asleep in the middle of the job. And not the job he's paid for. Next story. At a meeting with the heads of the departments. The guy running the meeting asks guy sitting next to him if he'd mind taking meeting minutes since assistant was unavailable. Guy responds asking if he looked like an N-word. Flabbergasted guy running meeting responds, I'm sorry, what? Other guy responds saying the exact same thing. He was told to leave the meeting and to catch his flight home. He was met at the airport with all of his things from the office. Next story. Not HR, but there when it happened. Trainee sales rep called the female national sales manager a, quote, freaking ignorant female dog, riding from the airport to training with other reps. Our CEO pulled him out and fired him on the spot. At the follow-up meeting, the sales manager said, "Can you believe he called me that?" I said, anyone that knows you knows that you're not ignorant. She laughed too. Next story. I once worked in a seedy dive bar with a homeless guy who was such a pleasant and positive person to be around. One night he walked in on one of our bartenders cooking crack on a hot plate in the kitchen. He reported the bartender and said he wouldn't want to work with them anymore. The managers fired the homeless guy. Oh, so the place is that seedy, huh? What a terrible, terrible outcome. It seems pretty cut and dry to me that you fire the person cooking drugs on your stove, not the guy reporting it. But hey, what do I know? Next story. Not HR, but worked for a company. Some servers needed to get migrated. They overworked some poor admin a lot. So that one day there was this one server left which absolutely must not get shut down for reasons. Guy walks in, pulls the plug. Overworked admin grabs a crowbar, why was this even there, and struck the colleague. The man raised his arm in defense and the arm broke. Admin guy was about to be let go when he came in with a lawyer. Yes, the company overworked him too hard. He got a big severance pay, but still had to go. Next story. I'm not in human resources, but there was a guy at my job that was terminated due to harassing many of the other coworkers and messaging guys and asking them to bang his wife, asking dudes for fellatio, and getting a bunch of the women in group chats to ask for trios. Now, all of this information I just shared, I didn't know until 3 months after he got fired. I thought he left because he didn't like the job anymore. Next story. There's a service that will ship a cardboard dong with a message on it to people you don't like. Coworker shipped 4 to people he didn't like at work with messages like, "Here's a dong as big as you." He ordered it from his work PC and had them delivered at work during the workday. Investigation ensued. He, being in tech, knew he was going to be caught and admitted to it. Was fired about a week later. Good guy, and the people he sent them to 100% deserved them. But come on. A bit of common sense should have been applied. Next story. Crapping out of the police basic training barracks window just after passing out. I used to be in the Royal Navy. Another Navy guy I knew left to join the police. He aced their basic training, got top recruit for everything. He was very fit, intelligent, and a very high achiever when sober. Basically, he won all the trophies and got to go for a few beers after the pass-out parade. Several hours later, he's smashed, stark naked, and decided it'd be funny to crap out of the top floor window of the barracks, or whatever the police call it. He totally forgot he wasn't in the Navy anymore, and that sort of thing isn't acceptable. His new colleagues greased him up, so they discharged him on the spot. Game over. Goodbye, police career. The next day, he walks back into the Armed Forces recruitment office, told them exactly what happened. The recruiter laughed and welcomed him back like he'd never left. He's an officer now. Next story. Had a guy show up to a factory in a tailored suit, covered in tattoos, grill, dyed dreads. Looked like a crappy rapper. The next day he got mad at the supervisor because he wasn't paid for his first day of work. It was explained to him thoroughly in orientation that we were paid bi-weekly. He started threatening the supervisor, then got violent. And last I know, he got dragged out of the building and we were told not to talk about it. He was young, too, probably just turned 18 or 19. The consensus among staff was that he probably did some more illegitimate work before trying to get a real job for some reason. Next story. Had to fire a woman for harassment once. Had an anonymous complaint about her, so investigated. For context, she was mid-20s working in IT company as a team leader, not in USA. We had a very diverse ethnic mix in the workplace, so it was expected to be aware of and respectful of cultural and religious nuances. In the investigation, it came out that she'd been asking the Muslim males to go to the shop during the working day to buy her period products as she was experiencing period pain. When they refused, she emailed her entire team letting them know she was having to go home for the day because of them. On staff birthdays, she would get the whole team to put in money to buy presents and would then buy personal toys and make people open them in the office. If people refused to contribute, she would publicly shame them. People stopped showing up to work on their birthday to avoid having to deal with the presents. She circulated a photo of herself riding an exercise bike in the mirror, naked with her hair down, covering her nips. She was also sleeping with another staff member. I've got other gold stories of stupidity, but this is still the most unique experience that hasn't been beaten, and it was over 10 years ago now. I'm gonna try saying this without sounding like a dude bro, but she wouldn't have gotten half as far if she were a dude. Like, first offense of this as a dude, specifically the more sexual harassment stuff, and she's out of there. As you should be, regardless of gender, I would like to point out. She got to get away with things for far too long, it sounds like. Believe it or not, making people uncomfortable is bad no matter what. Next story. I was locking the doors to my venue when I noticed the restaurant opposite, and the lights were still on. They always leave early. Maybe they're doing a stock count. Walk in the next day, first thing in the morning, and the restaurant is filled with senior management. What the hell happened last night? Well, it turns out the new assistant manager that was in charge of closing thought it would be a great idea to take 2 waitresses into the manager's office and have a trio whilst smoking weed and doing coke in front of the cameras. This guy's girlfriend was also a senior manager in head office, and I never got to know if she found out or not, but I'm guessing so, as he got sacked. And the two girls were moved to other stores after saying he used his position to get them to join in. Next story. We had a coworker who got fired because he actually did the blowtorch on a doorknob prank. He got it super hot, called another coworker to come into the room, and aside from completely burning a dude's hand, the doorknob also had some layer of protective plastic on it that melted into his skin. Really messed up his hand for a long time. Next story. I represented a company. I got a call one day from a lawyer who represented an employee who was recently fired from the company. The lawyer said the ex-employee wasn't paid his last month's wages and they would sue if he didn't get them immediately. I called my client, the company, to see what was up. Yeah, he was smoking ice in a company truck, then crashed it into the side of a building. We told him to get gone before we called the cops. Me, the next day to the other attorney. Did your client say anything about ice or a truck? Other attorney. Yeah, may have mentioned something like that. So, we're not paying you anything, right? I know. Next story. Not HR, but saw a dude not even last through lunch on his first day. Our department was about 10-ish people. We had a list of each member of the team's cell phone numbers posted up, which in hindsight wasn't a good idea. The new hire proceeded to save each female member of the team's numbers and text them creepy and sexually charged texts. Stuff like, "You are so beautiful. I could give you the best full-body massage you've ever had." It just escalated from there. The best part? One of the females that new guy texted was close to me and my work buddy that was also my desk neighbor. She came to us and showed us the texts, and her face had "what the hell" written all over it. My buddy, feeling protective of our gal pal, grabs her phone and immediately calls the sender's number. Right away, we hear the bzz, bzz, bzz coming from 2 workstations away. New guy was busted. Never even turned around, but his ears were beet red. Yep, gone before lunch. Next story. A teacher hosted a group banging sesh for some 12th graders from 3 different schools at her house. It was kept under the radar from the press and everyone else, with only a few details that got leaked. All students were expelled and the teacher is currently serving a 15-year sentence. Next story. We hired a service writer for a heavy equipment repair facility. She called in sick for the first day, then basically ghosted us for 3 weeks. Then, one day, walked in like nothing happened. Kinda reminded me of the Seinfeld skit where George quits and Jerry suggests he just goes back like nothing happened. She filed a wrongful termination lawsuit afterwards too, which really didn't go anywhere. Next story. I had to fire someone who left a DVD folder, one of the 250-ish ones, full of adult content created using company equipment, DVD burners and label makers, not the adult content itself. It was found in one of our company vans. It was found by a female employee. I recognized his writing but had to send it through the HR process, who eventually fired him for misuse of company property. The van. One of my best times at work was reading all 250-plus titles to HR. They asked me to stop after about 3, but hey, I wanted to give them the whole picture. The fired employee and I are friends to this day. Next story. Not HR, but termed an employee for going out to his truck. He stood next to the truck with the door open, took his dong out, got hard, took a photo of it, came back inside, and then showed it to a female employee under the table. He was like 23 and she was in her mid-40s and did not put up with anyone's BS. HR fired him over the phone, but later she told me the earful she got from him was something else. Then there was the girl with an OnlyFans account who decided to try to get some new subscribers by showing off one of the naughty photos she took of herself in a Santa outfit tied up. Then she got upset because the guys around her kept asking about her breast and if she did anything else besides OnlyFans. Like, what did you expect? Oh, and can't forget the time the random man came out of the bathroom and did the helicopter. He was not happy when I laughed and told him he's fired. I wasn't his manager and he tried to fight me over it with his pants around his ankles. Like, dude, get out. On one hand, if someone does make adult content themselves, sure, if a coworker stumbles upon it, it would be, a little classless to bring it up and especially harass the person about it. But if that person brings it up at work, the lines get a bit blurred, don't they? Should you harass the person? Obviously not. But there were preventative measures, like, not talking about that kind of thing at work. That seems like a good place to start. Next story. Nothing major, but had a WTF moment. The temp worker was hitting a bong in his car parked right in front of the building, facing the management's office. This was a manufacturing plant, so being under the influence while operating a heavy machine can do a lot of damage. But idiots don't care. Nor do they learn. Next story. Not HR, but was the senior Solaris, Unix, guy at a company in the 90s. One of the early employees' jobs was to keep adult content out of the search engine. Think something like Yahoo, Google. He had manually hard-coded his own adult content site for whenever someone searched for it. His main star was his wife. I got to search through his Solaris desktop in the VP of HR's office with a bunch of lawyers from the parent company all looking over my shoulder. Yes, much adult content was found. Yes, mostly of his wife. I also found a plain text file with all of his banking info. I was tempted to copy it, but with so many eyes watching, I was concerned they would question what I was typing, so I just skipped over it and never mentioned it. The 90s was a wild time. That was only one of the scandals. Around 2000, some VP flew from Seattle to Southern California to meet an underage girl. Yep, it was really a cop. Next story. Not HR, but I was management at the time. I had an employee watching the dirtiest stuff he could find on YouTube while at work. Mostly anime big-breasted stuff. When I confronted him, he denied it. I was in shock. In that moment, the only thing I thought to say was, "You didn't delete your browser history, dude." He took his last check and left. Next story. I was a manager in a unionized hospital in a big city, and one of my direct reports managed the parking garage. We had cashiers at the garage for 3 8-hour shifts. The overnight cashier just barely collected enough money to pay his salary, but we justified having him as an extra layer of security, along with TV cameras and periodic security patrols. One night, the security guard caught the cashier asleep. Not just dozing off, but curled up with a pillow. He was put on leave, and then we went through the union process of firing him. The union appealed his case all the way up to me, which is the only time that happened. The hearing was pretty friendly, and I could tell that the union rep thought the guy was an idiot. He stayed fired. Oh, and all the elevators had signs indicating that we monitored them for safety. Didn't stop any of the nurses or doctors from talking about who they were banging. Next story. We had a maintenance guy terminated after driving drunk to work. It was through 2 roadblocks where he somehow avoided getting pulled over, then started work by getting on a ladder and just sort of swaying there at the top, where his colleague eventually found him and reported it. I had to take him for blood tests, which could only get drawn at around noon, and he was still 4 times over the legal limit. Next story. Worked in a county for welfare as a supervisor. New employee didn't like our small little desk in the interview room, so decided to bring in wood and a drill to make an addition to it. That was just a write-up. Couple weeks later, he comes in wearing pajamas because he said he couldn't bend enough to put on pants. Terminated during probation. Didn't help that he smelled like pot every day after lunch. Next story. I'm not in HR, but knew the HR manager at a previous job years ago. Young, attractive girl from another country starts working. New to the US in a popular big city and is in full party mode. She begins an affair with a very married with children coworker who is much older than her. She is also having an affair with 2 other men in different departments, all married and older. We guessed she had a type. The first affair partner confronts her about the others. She runs to HR claiming harassment from him. She tells HR he is stalking her for no reason and there had never been any romantic involvement with him. Well, the first affair partner had receipts. Not only cell phone text messages of their affair, but emails using their company's email server of intimate content from her to him. The HR manager I was friends with said that when they released the explicit messages and emails and photos, he had never seen blood leave the face of a human so fast. She went from tan-toned to printer paper white in 0.005 seconds. They both got reprimanded while the investigation continued, but she quit, or rather stopped showing up to work, a few days later. He was fired a little while later. Next story. Not HR, but I used to work with a girl who had been with the company for quite a while and was genuinely terrible at her job. But my company didn't really fire people unless they had cause. Well, at one point she started pretending to be pregnant. She told everyone in the office. This went on for months. Once she got to the point where she would start to show, she started wearing baggy sweaters to cover her belly. She would still talk about it to everyone who would listen, and for some reason would even flash her bare belly at her coworkers. It was pretty clear she wasn't pregnant, but she still forged on. We started asking her pointed questions about it to see how far she was willing to go and lie about it. She had a reputation for telling tall tales in general, like how she was in a relationship with a local pro football player and other outlandish things. So along with the complete lack of evidence of her pregnancy, no one in our office actually believed her. Then she called out of work for a couple of days and said she had a stillborn, yet still showed up to the office in super tight booty shorts to talk to a coworker out front of the building, even though she had called out of her shift. For the men reading this, no one who just gave birth is walking around in booty shorts like nothing happened. A stillbirth is still a birth. She kept calling out, and our manager/HR demanded a note from her doctor proving why she was out. She eventually supplied one, but didn't mention anything about giving birth. It was like for some random, completely unrelated thing that wouldn't require being out for days on end. She was, of course, fired. Next story. Investigating a lab tech who was also a network admin, before we got serious about IT and security. He was believed to have copied a salary spreadsheet from a company officer's computer and published it as part of a unionization drive. And when I got past his BIOS password by just pulling his hard drive, I discovered to my horror he had been running a child content server using his modem. Yes, dial-up that long ago. It was from inside our building. Powered down, hands off, called HR and supervision and the police. That sick bastard was fired and arrested. Then I went home and hugged my children. People like that deserve to burn. Next story. One of our department admins was in an adult film. No problem, she was an excellent admin. It was an open secret, and people could go to a local purveyor of such films and ask for the company name video, and they'd grab the appropriate film. To this day, I don't know the actual name of it. Anyway, some bright sparks thought bringing it into the office and showing it in a conference room on the projector was a good idea. They didn't even paper over the conference room windows, a common thing to do when sensitive topics were being discussed, like review level setting by management. Said admin walked in and saw the film playing and instantly knew which one it was. Security was called, and once they had enough security there to escort each member of the viewing party out, they went in, took everyone's badges, walked them to their cubes if they needed to get their keys, and walked them out the door. Their cubes were packed up by security later for them to pick up. Yep, you just gotta be a special kind of stupid to do something like this. In a conference room at the place you work. Even if it was completely unrelated to anyone you worked with. Why would this ever be a good idea? What's wrong with you? How do multiple brains get together and decide that this is the thing to do? Ridiculous. Next story. Employee kept bringing her family in. They would sit in our break room for hours. We had a small break room, so it would be super awkward, especially when they would come in and change the TV or whatever. It would be the husband and two young teenagers. So weird. We reported it all the time and management knew but didn't seem to want to do anything about it. The employee said that she didn't have childcare, but what the hell, your husband is here. Finally, she got fired when her husband started going with her for med passes. Huge HIPAA violation. Turns out the family were huge hoarders and just didn't want to hang out in their own house. People would even see her sleeping in her car. After she got fired, our unit got infected with bed bugs. I swear they were there the whole time, but we just didn't notice until they left. Very strange family. She also got in trouble for doing hours of overtime every day and coming in on days off. Next story. Things over the years. 1. Would go through people's desks after hours to steal snacks. 2. Siphoned $300,000 via fake invoices to a shell company they made. 3. At a conference got drunk, asked a peer associate to show him her breasts at a charity event at the event. 4. Work from home who basically disappeared. 5. Told a manager that if he knew she was gay, he would have never hired her. 6. Told a staffer she talked like a, quote, ignorant black woman. 7. Was authorizing expenses at 20 times her authorized amounts. 8. Caught smoking weed in the bathroom. 9. Caught bribing an elected official. 10. Took bribes from vendors. And I could go on. Next story. Not an HR person, but one girl was fired from my first job in sales for allegedly smearing crap all over the women's bathroom. It was a big scandal. There was a huge investigation that included a female bathroom monitor to sleuth out who the phantom pooper was. Another girl was fired on her first day for being on ice, allegedly. She came in wearing gloves in the summer and looked super lost and joined a random meeting instead of her onboarding session. It was a fun job. Next story. I'm not HR, but once I was on a business trip with a couple of colleagues and I got a call from my boss telling me I needed to fire Ed immediately and send him home. Apparently he tried to buy drugs off a client. They got upset and called corporate. I asked him why he thought our business client sold drugs. He just said, "Oh, they look like the guys who would have drugs." Obviously, they did not. Helped him pack his things, tossed him on a Greyhound, and never saw him again. Next story. I worked at a job that threatened to fire me. One of the other workers snuck into the women's locker/change room and filmed one of the girls changing. He then went and showed everyone at work the video. The girl he filmed was a friend of mine, so I went straight to her rather than HR. The bosses did nothing because the pervert was one of the boys. My friend filed a police report and threatened to take the workplace to court. The boss said that if I was to testify in court that I would be fired, so I quit. Next story. I used to work at a Walmart distribution center, and we had a bunch of people get fired for dealing drugs at work. Apparently, they had an elaborate system set up to move the drugs around the warehouse that even involved announcing it over the loudspeaker in code. My boss was arrested for stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of electronics by just loading pallets of merchandise into his truck in the middle of the night. The security guard who helped him was also fired/arrested. Next story. We'd hired a graphic designer who was young and opted to dress overly revealing. More than once, she came in wearing a tight men's dress shirt as a dress with a belt and nothing else. There wasn't a strong dress code, and she wasn't ever explicitly exposing anything, so while she got talked to a few times, she couldn't be let go over it. But after about a month, it became clear that she was sweet-talking several of the male designers into doing her assignments for her because she was underqualified and shirking. So that was grounds enough to let her go. Similar story at another small company. We'd hired a developer who kept dragging on projects during the day and kept stepping out to take calls with his wife. But all of the stumbling blocks with his code during the day would come back the next day smoothed out and working as intended. It turns out he wasn't even a developer. Oh, but his wife was, and she was cleaning up his code both over the phone and in the evenings, so he got let go within a few weeks. I talked about imposter syndrome on the last one like this, but as the wife, how do you do this? Do you not just find it pathetic that your husband is in a job that he can't do? Like, that just feels wrong, right? Especially when you worked and learned all of this and qualified yourself, and then he's getting like the same level of credit as you because you're feeding him everything. Maybe not same level, but you get what I'm saying. I don't get why someone would do that, even for their partner. Next story. Not in HR, but someone I worked with got fired once because he fingered a client at a work event, and it was pretty damn obvious what was happening. Same guy had previously been warned about his conduct and professionalism after he offered to sell coke to a senior colleague. Advertising in the noughties was pretty wild. Next story. Worked for a wireless company, and while installing an antenna on a rooftop of a 20-story building, one of the guys decided to take a break to pee. He did so on top of the roof. Also, this was not the tallest building around, so there were plenty of people who looked out of their office windows and saw this man dong out peeing onto the roof of a building. We know people saw it because the building was getting complaint calls. He did not last long with the company. Next story. Not HR, but when I was chefing, I got my roommate a job as a barback and server. 1 month later, he comes walking around the corner with the biggest crap-eating grin, looks at me and says, "OP, I'll see you at home. I just got caught banging Nicole." I laughed and said, "For sure." Little did I know that they were banging on my dry storage area, specifically on a case of Idaho potatoes. Was quite the laugh when I called my food rep and explained to him why I would need to return these potatoes. He didn't take them back, but like a very nice guy, and since I made him laugh, he comped me a case. Next story. I was project manager doing a remodel. I was 25, while most of the contractors/subs/company employees were in their 30s/40s, so I didn't anticipate having too many issues where I'd have to sit people down. Fast forward, and I get notified by one of my colleagues that she was walking past the GC's office and spotted the overnight GC watching adult content on his laptop. This was an older fella who seemed like such a nice guy. I had to bring in all the subcontractors and GCs to a conference room and remind everyone that this is a place of work. This isn't their home, and they can't screw around or watch adult content on their free time. Everyone was like, "What the hell? Who's watching adult content?" I went in the next night when he wasn't expecting me to drop by, as I was only on site during the day, brought him to my office and told him if that crap ever happened again, I'd be on the phone with his boss, and his butt would be off our project. 2 weeks later, I had to fire one of the people we had hired to help with the remodel on our end because they thought since part of the building was vacant and being remodeled, there was no issue screwing around back there. Didn't take the extra 2 seconds to look up and notice that every square inch of the building was under video surveillance. And by screwing around, I mean they snuck their girlfriend, wife, friend, whoever it was, through the back door, went into one of the bathrooms, and literally screwed. Had to show him the video when he kept pushing back that it wasn't me, you must be mistaken. Folks, hold your goddamn urges until you get home. Next story. Not HR, but worked for a video game developer who previously had a team member. This team member was torrenting pirate films from the office, self-pleasuring in the office, sleeping in the office, leaving fecal matter on the windowsill in the office, and dumping litter from his car onto the office car park floor of the office, without ever being fired or spoken to about it. Think they were a very small team at the time and no on-site HR/managers up to tackling it. He eventually left. Next story. Some problems solve themselves, I guess. Also, what do you mean leaving fecal matter on the windowsill of the office? How does that happen? What chain of events led to that? Did it, spawn there, for lack of a better term? Or was it just placed there? You know what? I don't care. Next story. Not in HR. Chick got let go for taking pictures and posting them to her OnlyFans in the back room of the store. An ex-friend had reported her OnlyFans page to the company. I also had to discipline an employee for making out with his girlfriend over the counter while the store was open. It was a small store. I was basically like, dude, what the hell were you thinking? You're lucky a family didn't walk in. Next story. Oh man. When I was 18, I worked in an office of a small company. I had to get into a coworker's computer to get some pictures of a house for our client. I didn't know where she'd saved them. There was a folder on her desktop that was just new folder, so I opened it up. Pictures of my coworker in a diaper. Like a dozen pictures or something of this mid-50s lady in a diaper. The most what the hell moment of my young life. Yeah, that would be a shock, wouldn't it? Like, you do you, I guess, but I'm assuming that was their company computer, in which case, once again, you do you on your own time. And on your own digital equipment, please. Anyway, that's the last story for today. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. I think it's safe to assume that you guys will also have some of these stories, so let me know. For now, though, I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I will see you in the next one.